Well, hi, and welcome back to Will Henry's workshop. I'm still Will Henry. So last time I'd set that barrel up for the Remington 700 between centers and threaded it that way. Now I've put the steady rest in place on the lathe, and we're going to possibly chamber it that way. First, we're going to check and see how true it runs in the steady. And if it's good enough, I'll chamber it there. Otherwise, we'll go back to the 4-jaw chuck. So anyway, let's just check this out. Now, the steady rest is really a valuable part of the lathe, and a lot of times you have to use it if you're working with pieces that are particularly large, or there are times that you can use the steady to guarantee concentricity with the outside. If you turn halfway, for instance, on something, you can then turn a track at one end, turn it around, set it in the steady, and if you're boring, then you can bore the other half and have everything meet up. I don't think I explained that really well, but the time will come when I'll be able to demonstrate that for you. Anyway, so for now, all I'm going to do is just quickly check this. And now we know that this center that we cut in a previous video was absolutely zero. There was no run out whatsoever, and in relationship to the bore. And we'd like to maintain that happy circumstance. And if we don't, then well, that'll give us the opportunity to do things another way. Now, so let's just get set up on this. Center. Oops. And see what it says. A little debris in there. Clean that. Give that light blast with the air gun. Yeah, I don't know. Let's see if we can't zoom in here at all. Yeah, you can see that needle twitch. And back out a little bit. That's showing a total indicator run out of about a half a thousandth, 5/10,000ths of an inch. So that means that it's offset by 2.5 tenths. That's really not bad. I'm going to reach up in here just a little ways and check in the bore. Yeah, and again, that's less than half a thousandth. So in that case, I would say that we're all right to chamber in the steady. Now, before I do that, I'm going to change centers because I prefer to support the reamer on that dead center. and then I'll reset the steady. Now the thing is, with the steady rest, it doesn't matter where you, what the heck's happened here? Okay. It doesn't matter where you move your steady. Like if I shift the barrel by doing this and shift it over to the side, now that barrel is not aligned with the tailstock anymore, but it still will run concentric because it's held by the fingers, and the outside of the barrel we've established is concentric with the inside, and so it'll still run concentric, but it'll be offset. If you tried to chamber like that, you'd cut a chamber that was grossly oversized. And so anyway, you have to set up with the center you're using. And this is another positive aspect of this, is that if you do have a center that sits high or low, when you align your barrel with your center and set your steady rest up that way, the center and the bore will be perfectly aligned. And so that's another advantage of using the steady rest in conjunction with the tailstock center. You know that they are aligned, at least at the point of that center. And this has worked out really well because we took special pains to cut this center so that it was in line with the barrel. And same thing with turning the outside. We turned it on center, and we know that it's concentric, and we double check that here. Now, all the double checking and everything that we're doing is not something that under normal circumstances back in the day would have been done. Instead, we just simply take it on faith that we've done a good job because, quite frankly, we're trying to get the job done. And using the 3-jaw chuck at the headstock end and the steady rest and threading between centers as I did, I could fit and chamber and finish a barrel in less than 2 hours. And when you're trying to make a living at it, that's kind of important. But anyway, as I've mentioned, fortunately, I'm not really trying to make a living at it anymore. And instead, I'm making these videos in an attempt to educate. And how well that's working out, I'll never know. Anyway, so here we are. We're all set up. And I'm going to pause you for just a second while I get my tools ready. Well, it's not a real shocker, but I made a little bit of a camera error there, pushed the wrong button. Hopefully I can fix that in editing. But anyway, another check here. I've gone ahead and roughed the chamber to a depth of 1 3/8 with a twist drill, 15/16, I believe, or not 15 30-seconds, pardon me. 15/16 would be just a little big. So 15 30-seconds. Now nominally, that drill would drill roughly 0.468 or 469, and sure enough, that hole measures 469. So that's pretty good. And here's the thing, in checking the run out, and you're getting a little wiggle just from the finish. There again, it's showing a total indicator run out of well under 1/1000th of an inch. So in this particular case, roughing with the drill alone is perfectly viable. This leaves about 20 thousandths of an inch, I believe, for the reamer to clean up. So I can just go from there. Or if I wanted to, I could go ahead and pre-bore a little bit. But in reality, in this case, I think we're just fine going with the drilled hole. And again, this would be normal procedure. As I said, back in the day when possibly you couldn't operate through the headstock, and as I said, just for expedience, because it's faster. So now we've got that hole roughed. And the only thing that remains is for me to find where I put there it is, the dead center. I'll put that back in place and put the wrench on the reamer, and we'll get started on that part. Now my threading and so on, and the drilling there, I do at 240 RPM, but although reamer makers today say that that's just a fine reaming speed, I've just never been able to make myself happy with it, and so I still ream with the back gear engaged, and generally I'll ream with a Magnum like this. I'll ream at 90 RPM, and I'm happy with that. And it works out well. Now this steady rest, on the fingers on this, I have the tips are made of bearing grade nylon, and I also have bronze tips for it, but I kind of like the nylon. And I've also made tips with roller bearings, which work well too, but they don't work really, to me, any better than solid contact tips. So now I'm just going to walk over here and get the wrench for the reamer. Now I think you'll actually be able to hear me talk, although I'm nowhere near the darn camera. We'll see how that works out. Every video is kind of an experiment, primarily because I don't always know exactly what I'm doing. Okay, and now the reaming. One bad thing about doing it in the steady is that I can't put the camera up in the perch that lines you up with it, and because all the work is taking place too far back. I'm going to trip over this can if I don't move it. But anyway, that's this is what we've got. So. I went in about 5/8 of an inch for that first cut. Um, it's easy to, when you're not reaming too much, you can kind of push the reamer a little bit, and you can go in there quite a ways. And again, we're going to stop and check the rear end of the chamber and reach up in there a ways and check that too, just to see what we're getting. Blow that out a little bit. Now, another downside of operating in the steady is that I can't get into the muzzle end to blow the barrel out without having some sort of a tube. And because I don't often chamber in the steady anymore, although I have a tube for the purpose, I'll be darned if I know where I put it. So I'm going to have to hunt that up. But anyway, so yeah, we've got less, well under a half a thousandth of run out there. And that's in comparison, of course, to the outside of the barrel shank. But we know that the outside of the barrel of this shank was running very well in relation to the bore. So it appears that we're good. And in fact, I feel pretty good about this. And, to be honest, I'm not sure what I wanted the most. I wouldn't have minded if doing this showed a shortcoming of this method, so that then I could set up and show you the other way was that much better. But the truth is, if all of the operations leading up to this point were performed correctly and everything was in line, then it follows that this would be okay. Now, the times that this doesn't work out really well, and in fact, any method doesn't work out really well, is if you have a barrel that's not straight and has a significant curve to the bore. And we run into those quite often. I have a couple on my own rifles that I wouldn't have put on a customer's gun, and they're much more difficult to set up because, of course, as soon as you get up in here a couple inches, the bore's running out because the darn thing's curved, and some of them are curved almost in a helix, and it's very difficult to set them up. So when you do this, the front of the reamer's moving back and forth, and if you support it on the tailstock, you'll end up cutting a chamber that's oval at the back, or slightly, very slightly so. And that's a time when you would use a pusher to allow the back end of that reamer to wobble a little bit, so that although the back of the chamber might end up offset in relation to the threads or the axis of the action, at least it'll be straight in relation to the crooked bore. So that's something that you run into. If you have a curved bore and you just set up and dial in at each end, and you can reach up far enough to dial in right at the throat, then you can go ahead and pre-bore, and you'll get a chamber that's aligned with and concentric with the throat location. Now, it won't be quite in line with the rest of the barrel because, as I said, the rest of the barrel takes off in an unknown direction as soon as you get past there. But so you can do that. And now another thing on the steady. I keep these things pop into my head, and I'm sorry if it's confusing. It's possible, if you're running a little eccentric and you want to do better, you can put a sleeve on the barrel, and with 4 adjustment screws, a spider as it were, and you can adjust that to where your bore is running perfectly true. And when you've done that, essentially you're kind of holding the barrel in a mini 4-jaw chuck, and you've aligned it, and you can work that way just as well as if you were working in the chuck itself. The other potential issue with reaming this far away from your chuck is, again, you have a little bit of flex, a little torsional flex in the barrel, and sometimes that'll set up a chatter in your reamer. Not often. Usually if that happens, it's not really because of the setup, it's because there's an issue with the reamer or in your method otherwise. Anyway, this is it. I'm going to go ahead and ream this chamber, and I'm not going to record all of it because we've seen it before. As we approach the end and when it comes time to throat it, I'll start recording again. That'll be on the next episode, and then we'll do the threading for the muzzle brake. Now, I'm not going to set up and do the muzzle end in the steady. I could set up and do it on the center, but you know what? I like doing it in the chuck. It's just quicker and easier for me, so I'm just going to do it that way. And but anyway, all of that's upcoming, and we'll get it done. We'll mark it, and yeah, then we'll be finished. And hopefully he can go out and shoot a bear or whatever it is that he's after with this particular rifle. Now, once again, the hunt for the remote. Aha, here it is. And so until then, this is Will Henry.